Hello, this is Tony Heller from realclimatescience.com. This video is part 3 of my series discussing climate academics rewriting Earth's history to meet the needs of globalist billionaires. In 2009, Lawrence Solomon wrote in the Financial Post, "The climate change industry, the scientists, lawyers, consultants, lobbyists, and most importantly, the multinationals that work behind the scenes to cash in on the riches at stake, has emerged as the world's largest industry." In part 2, I discussed the disappearance of the medieval warm period and Little Ice Age. These graphs were from the 1990 United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report. They showed that Earth was much warmer 800 years ago, it was much colder 300 years ago, and all recent warming occurred before the 1950s. These graphs pretty much destroyed the idea that humans controlled the climate with the burning of fossil fuels. So 10 years later, the United Nations rewrote Earth's history and instead used Michael Mann's fraudulent hockey stick graph. This graph erased the medieval warm period and the Little Ice Age and made it look like Earth was heating out of control over the past century. His graph was completely fraudulent, but it suited the political and financial agenda of globalists. Mark Stein wrote an excellent book describing just how awful the fraudulent science of Michael Mann is. In this video, I'm going to discuss how Michael Mann is now trying to erase the Holocene maximum when Earth was much warmer 5,000 years ago. In Michael Mann's latest rewrite of history, the hockey stick goes back in time 8,000 years. As I'm going to show you now, it's trivial to prove that this graph is fraudulent, just like Michael Mann's other one. 5,000 years ago, there were trees growing in Canada all the way to the edge of the Arctic Ocean. This is a fossilized tree stump from 5,000 years ago. At the current time, all of this land is permafrost, and the tree line is 80 to 100 kilometers further south. Earth's climate had to have been much warmer 5,000 years ago. The Geological Survey of Norway says that the Arctic Ocean may have been ice-free 6,000 to 7,000 years ago, and there was definitely much less ice. July temperatures along the northern coastline of Russia may have been 2.5 to 7 degrees Celsius warmer than now. The ice disappeared, the permafrost melted, yet the polar bears survived just fine. In 2013, Cambridge University professor Peter Wadhams said, "Ice-free Arctic in 2 years heralds methane catastrophe." His premise was that the permafrost would melt, releasing methane, and Earth would heat out of control. But we know that the permafrost was melted 5,000 years ago, there was no catastrophe, and the Earth did not heat out of control. 4,000 years ago, large pine trees grew at 650 meters above sea level on the Cairngorm Mountains in central Scotland. Now there's no trees at that elevation, and the closest trees are dwarfed and stunted. The climate was much warmer 4,000 years ago. Fossils don't lie, but well-funded climate academics do. Bernese geologist Christian Schlichter says our society is fundamentally dishonest. He says that when Hannibal crossed the Alps, there was no evidence of glaciers, and the tree line was much higher than it is now. Glaciers are not mentioned in any of the detailed travelogues from Roman times. The reality is that most of the mountain glaciers we have now formed during the Little Ice Age. But Michael Mann erased the Little Ice Age as well. This guy's made a fortune wrecking climate science. He has no respect in the legitimate scientific community, but he says what globalists want to hear, so he's put up on a pedestal by the press. Modern climate science has nothing to do with actual science. If you want to understand why climate academia is so pathological, the best approach is to follow the money. Toto's been barking about this for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki, and Upla on the web at realclimatescience.com.